Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Charger Chat. My name is Megan Owens, and I am the Program Manager for Alumni Relations. We are so excited that you joined us today. We are going to record today's Charger Chat, so if you would like to turn off your camera, you may do so now. I would like to introduce to you Dr. Beth Quick. She is our Dean of the College of Education, and she is going to be giving us an update on what is happening with the college and just an overall review of what the College of Education is up to today. So, Miss Beth, you can take it away for us.
Thank you, Megan. Well, thank you for this opportunity, and it's nice to be here today and just to share some of the updates and information from the UAH College of Education. We've been busy despite all the challenges the pandemic has presented, and continue to do our best to serve not only our community but our students, and continuing to grow our programs, and our faculty just continue to be productive and doing good things in their research and their scholarship. So despite all the unusual nature of this academic year, we continue to stay very active. College of Education is a relatively new college. We've been in existence for about 6 years, and we have 2 academic departments. One of those is curriculum and instruction, and the other is our Department of Kinesiology. And so I'm happy to talk through kind of the programs. Megan, I'll let you kind of navigate and help me know how we want to proceed.
Absolutely. So we are going to do this as a question and answer type format. So if you have questions for Kelly specifically about any specific topic, you can put those in the chat box and I'll ask them for her. One of the first topics, Ms. Beth, is how have the students been during the changes of COVID, and what are some new changes as far as student teaching goes for students?
Well, College of Education has had to be resourceful, and we've done some changes in response to the pandemic. Probably one of the challenges is for many of our courses, we had to think about how to develop and deliver those as hybrid courses because we wanted to maintain social distancing. So that meant some changes in delivery for some of our courses. And then one of the unique things about the College of Education, all of our degree programs require an internship. And so that looked a little different, particularly in the fall. Our programs are not only in public school settings, which obviously looked really different, but our Department of Kinesiology also has internships in sport and fitness management as well as exercise science fields. So given the pandemic, some of those internships in the fall particularly, we were very innovative because access obviously to some of the health clinics and hospitals and traditional venues for us was not possible in the fall. So we had a lot of students who and faculty who worked to do things in a different way. For our students that were interning in public schools, it looked a little different depending on where they were interning. So some were working remotely, some were in hybrid schedules where they saw students part of the week and then online. Some were in person with plastic face shields and face masks and plastic shields around desks. So it really was very different depending on each individual student. And I think in the midst of all that, I would applaud our coordinators who had to manage all those placements, and then our supervisors who were out in a variety of things. And then despite all that, all the interns had a successful experience in fall and were able to complete and graduate. And then this semester, thankfully, things look a little more what I would characterize as typical. Most of our students in our educator preparation programs are either out in classrooms teaching full-time, or they're in classrooms where some of the districts are still on a hybrid schedule or different possibilities, but they're all out there. And then we also found this semester it was easier to get our interns placed for sport and fitness management as well as exercise science back in some of those traditional occupational therapy, physical therapy settings, sport and fitness venues and agencies. And it's feeling a little more typical, I guess, this semester.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have a question for you. Why were you drawn to early childhood education?
Somebody knows a little bit about me. My background is I was a classroom teacher, and I began my experiences working with fourth graders. And when I taught fourth graders, I realized very quickly that if students were not proficient readers, that they were going to struggle the rest of their academic career. And so it opened a lot of questions for me about how children learn to read. And so that kind of propelled me back into graduate study. And my focus was on language and literacy and working with parents and families, because I understood for the little ones that I might teach that child for 9 months, but the parents had those children and that responsibility for a lifetime. So I went to second grade and spent time with second grade, and also a program we referred to back then as transitional first grade, which meant children who had gone through first grade but still were not finding success as independent readers, and worked with that. And then actually spent some time with 3 and 4-year-olds, because I began to understand that reading and literacy happens long before kindergarten, first grade. And so that's really, I've always believed that the fundamentals and the foundational skills are important. And I began to understand social and emotional growth, and the impact of those early experiences really is the foundation for who we become and who we are as individuals. So that's kind of a little my personal journey into early childhood. It's been a field that's been good to me. I've worked in a lot of different venues: public school, private school, grants administrator. I've worked for a for-profit company, managing and facilitating school district level grants, and then higher education. Also began some of my work when I was still teaching in the classroom, working with parents and families as a GED instructor, because I've realized for a lot of my children that I taught, their parents themselves were not literate. And so trying to invest in those parents and families to get them GED or high school equivalency.
I love that. Thank you. Could you tell us more about the Department of Kinesiology and the equipment they use and train students to use, including the underwater treadmill?
Yes, so the Department of Kinesiology is a very quickly growing program. They offer a Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology that has 2 concentrations. One of those is exercise science, and the other is our certification program for those individuals who want to teach physical education in the schools. Many of the students that do our Bachelor of Science exercise science concentration really have aspirations to go on to do graduate studies, or to become an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. And then we have another degree in that department that's our Bachelor of Science in Sport and Fitness Management. And those are really more individuals who want to do, they come out, sorry, that's a student. They come out with a minor in business, but they're really equipped to also do sports marketing management on the business side. And so that's another program. Most of the equipment we have is in our human performance laboratory, our exercise laboratory. Those are located in Wilson Hall. And we've got faculty with very specific interest and expertise, but the underwater treadmill is located in Wilson. Ryan Connors is one of our faculty members who had done a lot of his work as a doctoral student and in his graduate studies with the underwater treadmill. That's a piece of equipment that we use for a lot of research, but it's also used for a variety of studies for mobility and trying to get people ambulatory. We've had some studies done with veterans who are amputees who have prosthetics to teach them how to walk again. You can feel the movement more when you're moving in the water to retrain. It's also been used with special populations like those with cerebral palsy, again, to help with gait and walking. It's also been used for some of our students who've done published research and summer research projects alongside that. And we've done some coordination and collaboration with the College of Engineering, using lasers and doing some really kind of interesting things to try to understand and better monitor and assist people with patterns of walking in their gait and mobility with the treadmill. Then there's a whole lot of equipment on third floor in Wilson in our biomechanics laboratory. Dr. Paul Whitehead joined us as a faculty member about 3 or 4 years ago, and that's one of his areas of expertise. So as students are moving through that Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, they do structured experiences in the laboratory, and they do lab courses. So what they learn is how to use all the equipment. Much of that is very technology driven. It's dependent on computers and it's hooked up. It's a fascinating place to go and see and understand. One of the challenges is so as our program continues to grow, we continue to look for ways to find more square footage to have more equipment for the growing student population.
That is so neat. That's neat to watch that program have grown as much as it has. Can you share your thoughts about methods that K through 12 educators could or should be using to increase reading levels and mathematical skills?
Well, that could be a whole program. So condense that down. The key for teachers is differentiation. And by that, I mean you must understand where each student is. And once you establish a baseline of where the student is, that will help inform what we do in terms of instruction. For both literacy and math, it's about having meaningful, authentic interaction. For reading, it's deeply connected to writing. And we are working with a lot of our area schools to really encourage the use and integration of writing. I often say to students, good readers are good writers, and good writers are good readers. The two go hand in hand. And then for mathematics, it's really about developing conceptual understandings. And so for our youngest learners, it means having lots of opportunities with physical manipulation of objects and manipulative so that they understand. There was a time for me, and probably maybe many of you, that math was about memorizing algorithms and how to do a calculation. And so you went through that computation, but you didn't always understand why. And so we would talk about things, about carrying numbers or regrouping, and children and students really didn't understand. And so as they move through the higher level maths, or they move into higher level reading tasks, those foundational skills and understandings weren't there. And so we worked really hard. We have licensure programs for teachers in everything from literally infancy up through 12th grade. And math and reading are fundamental skills that are taught at every level. It just looks a little different. And so that's part of what we try to do, is equip our teacher candidates to know how to developmentally appropriately provide that instruction by the age or the grade level, but also for their content. The way we would want to meaningfully teach math looks very different for an 8-year-old in second grade as compared to maybe a 13-year-old in 8th grade. So we want to make sure that's very clear in their subjects, that they know how to do it in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. One of our next questions is how have teacher candidates been prepared to use manipulatives virtually if the students are, it must mean in the schools, if the students in the schools are at home learning virtually?
Well, one of the benefits is that our students themselves are sometimes the most proficient in terms of using technology, and they're very resourceful. All of our students are required to take a technology course, and it's taught by a practitioner. And that's done intentionally because she's been a technology coach and a technology teacher. So she's at the forefront of that. But we understand it's not one course that's going to equip them. So when you come into our classrooms where our candidates are, most of those classrooms are equipped with Panopto cameras, with smart boards or Promethean boards. They're using things like virtual manipulatives, virtual labs, if they're, in those grade levels. And then two, if we're honest, because of the challenges that the pandemic presented, in many ways, our students were the resources for their cooperating teachers and their districts because they were much more comfortable or proficient in knowing how to put together presentations. In fact, I was reading a comment yesterday from a cooperating teacher in Madison County, and she was so appreciative of the intern she had because she said the intern taught us and helped us with all the technology and knowing how to, do the uploads or add animations or searching for resources that were open access that students could use. So I think they're very much equipped, but I think because of the challenges of the remote and hybrid delivery, they've been good resources to their teachers. Maybe have had to, out of necessity, embrace some new technologies.
Absolutely. I think that speaks volumes of the program that they are so complimentary of the teacher candidates and the interns. If you were to attend UAH and do the College of Education program yourself, do you have a favorite course?
Well, I do because I still teach courses. And this will make sense given my background, but we have an undergraduate graduate course, ED 375, 575, and it's an emergent literacy course. And so that's the course I still enjoy teaching. And it's because to me, it's such a pivotal course in terms of how we lay that foundation for diagnosis, assessment, instruction of our very earliest learners for preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third grade children, and making sure our teachers are equipped not only to understand how children learn to read, but that they've got the strategies so that when they go into a classroom, they feel like they're knowledgeable and equipped and ready to teach children. One bragging point I will make, just because I have the floor, is statewide EdTPA is a performance assessment that's required for educators to become licensed. And in Alabama, it's a requirement for any person that wants to become a teacher. And I'm really, really proud of our students and our graduates. It's a performance assessment that's completed during internship. It requires writing lesson plans and creating assessments. The students that are interning do video clips of their teaching. They've got to write commentary and explanation of that. That is then submitted electronically, and it's blind reviewed by someone in the country. And there are qualifying scores that must be earned. And I am very happy to report that UAH has a 100% pass rate on that. And that is phenomenal.
That is amazing.
It is a tribute to our faculty. Our faculty do enormous work with our candidates. It's also important to know that our candidates get jobs. Typically, when they're interning or during one of their practica, it is not uncommon for a principal or a site supervisor to call and say, what do I need to do to hire this person? And so, we constantly get calls, do you have anybody? And the answer usually is no, because they've all already secured employment. And so, our interns right now this semester have only been out in the field about, 2 or 3 weeks. And already I've gotten an email and a phone call, going, I want this one. And I'm like, I don't release them for employment. You got to convince them that they want to be with you. But we have established a really strong reputation of excellence, and I'm really proud of that. EdTPA, I'm very proud of because it's not scored internally, it's scored, by trained reviewers. It's a very intensive process. So for us to say, since it's beginning, every student we've trained and equipped to be a teacher has been able to demonstrate that at a national level of expectation, I think speaks volumes about the quality of the experience. Now, they'll tell you College of Education is not easy. And I tell them, as I did yesterday in our Intro to Ed class I've got this semester, I make no apologies for that because the responsibilities are great. But all the programs in our college are designed to be what I term helping professions. So whether you want to be a classroom teacher or an occupational therapist or someone working in the sports industry, someone that wants to be an art teacher, a phys ed teacher, a music teacher, a band instructor, a biology, all of those are fields that require you to care and serve others. And I think it's a unifying thread through our college. And then I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention we have a growing list of options in graduate programs, and our graduate programs continue to grow as well. Curriculum instruction has a number of graduate programs, a Master of Arts in Teaching, a Master of Science in Education, also has a Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis, which is a growing grad degree for us. And then I'm excited because our Department of Kinesiology has just completed work on its first proposal for a Master's of Science in Kinesiology. So, we continue to grow. I often tell faculty, if you want somewhere where you can just kind of hang out and just do the normal, we're not your place. It's a growing, busy place, but it's part of what I think makes us very unique and special. It's fun to work in the College of Ed.
Absolutely. We have another question for you personally. Did you have a mentor in your early career? And if so, how did that experience impact your overall career?
I did. I would say I've had the good fortune to have several mentors. In my doctoral work, when I began pursuit of my doctoral studies at Vanderbilt, I had the great fortune to work with Dr. Earlene Kendall, who was a professor of early childhood. And she understood that a lot of my learning and growth was going to happen beyond the classroom. And so she, at the time, would often frustrate me because she pushed me. But she was like, you need to do this. You're going to do this. I said, I don't know. She said, I didn't ask you. You're going to do this. So she helped me begin to understand what it would be like to be in higher education in terms of grants and productivity, and inviting me into program assessments and curricular pieces. And that was really important. And then Jerry Bach was also a professor at Vanderbilt when I was there, and I worked for him on a grant. But Jerry was the first person who said to me, you're going to publish a paper. And I said, I've never done that. He goes, okay, and you're going to publish a paper. And so both of them cultivated in me the desire to work in higher education, but they invested in me. And I think that model has continued, I hope, in what I do for students. My first higher education position was at Florida State University. And I will be forever grateful to Chuck Wolfgang, who was a professor of early childhood ed, who took a chance on a young green novice, brand new doctorally trained person. And he really mentored me in my very first position in higher education, and helped me again understand what I wanted to be, and provided lots of opportunities. Then for administration, when I went to the University of Tennessee system, I went thinking I'm just, going to continue my work as a faculty. And went there. That was my first time to kind of move into administration in a formal way. And Mary Lee Hall was my dean. And she remembered, I remember sitting in her office at her table, and she said, "You're going to be a higher ed administrator." And I said, yeah, whatever. I'm just trying to figure out how to be a faculty member. But her leadership style and the way she built a team of people and understood that everyone has different skill sets, her communication skills. I was able to watch her in practice and then move up and become a department chair and under her leadership. So she taught me a lot about leadership. But I've had the good fortune to be around a lot of people in my career and still have those people who hold me accountable and challenge me even now. So we all pay it forward, hopefully. So hopefully I'm continuing to do that with our faculty and with colleagues out in our area schools and people I've had the benefit of getting to across our state as well.
Absolutely. It sounds like it. We have one last question for our time together today, and it is, what are some of the strongest innovations you are seeing in the future of instruction?
That's a really tough question, because I think what we're learning is instruction can come in many varied forms. I think one of the things that I see and I continue to see is technology is a tool, but it does not replace human interaction and human connection and relationships. So I think that's a piece where we've moved beyond kind of the honeymoon phase of being enamored with just technology to thinking more about how do we intentionally use technology in meaningful ways. And I think too, the focus on not just instruction, but assessment has changed our field, and that we're learning that it's not enough to just teach. The question has to be answered, whether it's teaching that client how to do physical therapy activities, or whether it's teaching the student in a classroom, or the question has to, how do you know that you made an impact? How do you know that you've had a productive struggle and interaction with that person for growth? And so I think assessment has become much more important in terms of how we think about instruction. Not only are you being effective as the instructor, but have you effectively challenged that individual to grow and become better? So I think the focus on assessment and probably the refocusing of how technology is used. And then I think across our field too, the understanding that all individuals can learn. And that means that we must understand the strengths each person brings, maybe individual challenges, cultural, racial, ethnic challenges, and how are we responsive to that, and how do we build off of that from a strengths-based perspective, I think is another important insight we're learning more about.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Quick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and giving us an update on the College of Education. We are just delighted to hear the successes and the wonderful reputation that your department has brought. And I think it's just a great testament of you and your leadership and your team and your colleagues. And I'd like to thank the alumni too for joining us today. I hope that you've enjoyed this just about as much as we have. So Dr. Quick, do you have anything left to share with us today?
No, I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and I invite any of you to be ambassadors for us to spread the news of the good things occurring in the College of Education, and not to be a stranger. If anyone would like to get a firsthand glance, our faculty and students are very willing and receptive to share the good things that are occurring. So we welcome in-person visits, or if we can, provide information on a phone call or a Zoom, don't be strangers. We're happy to share the good news.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.